The primary use of DNA profiling is to link people with crime scenes when they deny having been to premises. And that is really the key difference with this case and the normal kind of case which would be profiled. With this kind of case, you must consider the possibilities of innocent transfer.
Professor Peter Gill spent 30 years in the UK Forensic Service and was the first person to prove DNA can be extracted from a crime scene. He says the problem with the forensic evidence in this case is that you'd expect the suspect's DNA to be found at the house.
Well, we know that Sollecito was in the flat shortly before the murder for innocent reasons. We also know that when the investigators went into the flat, they allegedly had latex gloves on, which is fairly standard practice, but in between handling items, they did not change their gloves. Also, I understand that this bra clasp wasn't found for 47 days. So in my mind, that does give you reason for concern, because we do know that latex gloves are high risk when it comes to transferring DNA between different items.
But prosecutor Giancarlo Costagliola has an answer for that.
Given that the clasp remained in Meredith's room, it means that someone would have to have taken Sollecito's DNA, and he claims never to have been in that room, and taken it to the room and put it on the clasp. This is not possible. Why? Sollecito claims never to have been in that room. He maintains that he spent very little time in Amanda's house. A cigarette with Sollecito's DNA was found at the entrance of the house, but his DNA was not found in other parts of the house. So how could there have been contamination? That's what I want to know.
Sollecito's DNA may have been on the door handle, for example. So supposing an investigator had opened the door, touched the door handle, then that is one way in which his profile could have been transferred.
Did they test the door handle of Meredith's room?
It was done on the inside of the room, not the outside.
So the external door handle, which Raffaelli and Amanda say earlier on, Raffaelli was touching, trying to get into the room, that wasn't tested?
Because that door handle was outside the room where the murder took place.
But what about the DNA found on the knife at Sollecito's flat? It may be Amanda's DNA, but Peter Gill says it could have got there when she was chopping vegetables. Meredith's DNA is also on the knife, but it's a tiny amount, he says, and the knife was at one point transported in a cardboard box. Amanda's DNA was also found in the bathroom, mixed with Meredith's blood. For the prosecution, this is damning. But Gill says he'd expect to find Amanda's DNA, because the two girls shared the bathroom.
I think it's a psychological effect. We call it the confirmation effect, or you can call it the CSI effect. The media always portray DNA evidence. If you've got DNA evidence, it means someone has committed a crime. And that is really ingrained in the public psyche. But this is completely the wrong way to think about it, because just because you've got a DNA profile doesn't mean to say someone has committed a murder. I think the CSI effect is quite a wide problem. I think even scientists and judges and lawyers can be infected with this particular syndrome.
This isn't the only physical evidence in the flat that's been used against Sollecito and Knox. There was a footprint left in blood on the bathroom mat that the prosecution thinks is Sollecito's. A chemical was used to reveal what could once have been the bloody footprints of Knox and Sollecito on the floor, but this evidence isn't certain. But there was one piece of forensic evidence that wasn't scrutinised, a stain on the pillow found beneath Meredith's body, a stain that looked like semen. Sollecito's defence team wanted it tested, but their request was refused. I asked the prosecutor, Giancarlo Costagliola, why.
For a very simple reason, that sperm is one of those substances that lasts over time. We must remember that Meredith had a boyfriend, so it would have taken us onto another path that made no sense, because it's not possible to determine when this kind of substance might have been deposited on something. It would have misled us entirely.
I think it would be crucial to carry out this kind of test because it might reveal an unknown DNA profile that has come from an individual who has no innocent reason to be in the flat. I find it remarkable that this wasn't done, actually, because if the defence make a request for some work to be done which may exonerate a suspect, then naturally you would expect this work to be carried out.
If you were judge or jury on this case, would you be satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that the DNA evidence you've seen points to guilt?
No, absolutely not.